Thank you very much. You may be seated. Your Excellency, President Cyril Ramaphosa, the Honorable Minister of Sports, Arts and Culture, Minister Kodwa, the Honorable Deputy Minister in the Presidency for Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities, John Jeffrey, the CEO of the Deaf Federation of South Africa, senior officials and colleagues in government, special guests attending today's signing ceremony, including learners from Philadelphia High School, Transorania High School, and St. Dominica High School, all from here in the city of Tshwane. Welcome. My name is Vincent Magwenya. I'm the spokesperson to the President. I'll be your program director and timekeeper during the proceedings. Mr. President, is a historic moment in the lifespan of our young, emerging and growing democracy. Often the signing of any bill is a lonely, quiet task that the President will undertake in the presence of his aides, legal team amongst others, to ensure compliance with all the stipulated processes and that the bill is in line with all the tenets of our Constitution. But today's signing is not a private and lonely task in the presence of our Chief of Staff. To mark the historic nature of this bill for the first time since the advent of our democracy, the Presidency is guest. Please give yourselves a round of applause. Without wasting any time, I'd like to invite Dr. Wilma Nivot-Drogen to take us through the journey leading to the passing of this very historic bill. Let's welcome Dr. Nivot-Drogen.
Thank you again. Let's give it another round of applause. Honorable President, Honorable Deputy Ministers and Ministers, and all the protocol observed. I don't want to reflect back because there's not enough time in 3 minutes to do that. But I would like to thank the following people. Honorable President, if you realize that in 1996, when the draft of the CSA at that time was not its name yet, it was the South African Council of the Deaf. And we thank you for that time, for recognizing sign language in the Constitution in 1996. But we were not happy. We lobbied that our language need to become an official language. That's why we're here at this moment. And I want to thank you and that you opened up this very prestigious event for us to witness the signing of the South African Sign Language Bill. So, and then I hope, but also want to thank all the departments who were involved. Many left, many retired, and we were very anxious because they retired, but they hand over the task to other people to take over. Thank you. And then also to PANSALP. Olga, Blossie, thank you for you behind the scenes and lobbying for behind the scenes. Thank you, Olga. And then, like I would also like to say thank you to the community of deaf community of South Africa that have marched in all 9 provinces and lobbied, and individuals meeting with the presidency, meeting at IBISOS and asking the president for South African Sign Language to be an official language. Thank you for pushing this forward. And then in Parliament, I think they already finally saw the light in passing South African Sign Language. My committee that I'm serving on, everybody has a great understanding of South African Sign Language. And on the 2nd of May, it was all political parties that have voted for South African Sign Language to be an official language. And I think finally our government understands why this is so important. The process has been long, but it's not the long road to freedom, definitely not that, but a long road to get our language official. So our children in schools are waiting in deaf schools. Our deaf students are waiting at deaf universities for those barriers to be removed. So thank you, Honorable President. Thank you so much. So we just landed from South Korea. We attended the World Federation of the Deaf, asking us, how did we do it? And they still asking us as South Africa, how did we come to this moment? So thank you for inviting us to witness this event. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Another warm round of applause. Thank you very much. One of the key features of introducing any bill in our country is the requirement for meaningful stakeholder engagement. We will not be celebrating this bill without the invaluable contribution and the input from the sign language sector and the deaf community. For more reflections on the journey of the South African Sign Language Bill, please welcome Mr. Jabulani Blose, CEO of the South African National Deaf Association, who, after exactly 3 minutes, will be followed by Mr. Bruno Drachen from the Deaf Federation of South Africa. Mr. Blose.
To the Honorable President and all protocol observed. So I feel that today is a very important moment and a huge change for South Africa. So it means that a new deaf person is born, so that sign language becomes an official language, meaning that this new deaf person that is born to a South Africa that is accessible, receptive, enabling, and socially just. But where did the journey start? All of us being here to actually, so I didn't start the journey in sign language, but I like to recognize leaders in the past and present. Some has already passed on, some are already old at home, so they started this journey. But they passed on the baton, and then from that generation up until where to end up where I am to end the journey. But I realized one thing. I remember one thing in the 1980s, there was the disability movement in South Africa. There was a resistance to say we want something for ourselves, to lead ourselves, to represent ourselves. That's where the birth of Nothing About Us Without Us came about. And then this led to the birth of the Disability Rights Charter in South Africa. And then sign language was embedded there, and then lobbied the government of South Africa to include sign language. Remember, at the time, it was not democracy, it was during apartheid. So meaning that this charter was submitted to the ANC. Then there was a discussion to make sure that in 1996, sign language is included in the South African Constitution. So that's where we start. That's when we joined the journey. And then we joined the journey whilst the Constitution the sign language is already in the Constitution. So yes, I need to be included in the society. That's where it led to government in South Africa to introduce the Integrated National Disability Strategy. Also, in that document, sign language was also included, meaning that for the first time, that government in South Africa will introduce disability programs in government. And then later, the UN Convention overseas, then South Africa, it was ratified as well, meaning that acknowledging the rights of deaf people. And then after that was the white paper on the rights of persons with disabilities. It happened right there in South Africa. The government of South Africa ratified that also. So it was the recognition of the rights of deaf people. So now I'm here just to see that sign language needs to be an official language. And we then made submission to Parliament. Well, we know that Parliament is a long process. Sometimes I feel like it will never happen. I don't believe that today it is actually happening. Thank you to the people who led and started this journey that is concluding today. So all this achievement today belongs to them. We must recognize all those people who have achieved it. So today, it's a deaf person is born again. Long live our vibrant democracy. I thank you.
A round of applause. Thank you very much. And I will now invite Mr. Bruno Druchen to also share perspective on the journey and what this bill means for the future.
Viva South African Sign Language, viva. I don't know really what to say. I'm very emotional today. Deaf people have barriers for many, many years, and that their language was not recognized. Deaf people continue to have barriers in communicating, and also barriers in having access to information. Deaf people continue to have barriers to health, education in the mainstream, universities, basic services in courts. Deaf people continue to have those barriers. Deaf people still go to court today and have no access, and having experienced all these barriers, and they do not have the freedom of participating in public. With all these barriers, deaf people have rose, and they have become assertive. The deaf community in South Africa, in all 9 provinces, started their journey in 2007 in making this day a reality. And for 16 years, they lobbied, like Honorable Wilma Neodruchen covered, and Mr. Jabu Blossi covered. He covered well on those issues. But this is a historic moment for deaf and hard of hearing people today. Yes, the celebration of South African Sign Language, when our Honorable President is going to sign today, is going to change deaf people's lives. It's very emotional for me today, and for those that are still struggling out there. So we hope that our government will welcome them into the courts, welcome them into the schools, FET colleges, universities, and welcome them in deaf people. And don't be afraid of communicating with deaf people. Especially the media, for supporting our campaign, and then also for all the National Assembly of Parliament. Thank you for them, and also the Portfolio Committee of Justice that is really supporting us, and that has given us strength. I've been in South Korea very recently. I've been elected as a board member of the World Federation of the Deaf. I told the General Assembly that there was 96 countries present, and I told them that our language will soon be official. And we have our brothers and sisters in Uganda that already has its official language. Kenya already has an official language in their sign languages. Everybody was looking at South Africa. Today is a glorious day. So many people of our neighboring countries, Botswana, they don't have an official language as South African Sign Language or Botswana Sign Languages yet. So we need to support the other SADC countries, to support them in getting their sign languages official. So I want to ask my president today, I want to challenge you. I want to teach you a few signs, only which will not bite you. So please come and stand next to me. So, in South Africa, we have remember 24/7 all over the country and all abroad. So I just want to teach you 3 signs. Are you ready, Mr. President? Okay. First sign is hello. Hello. Tick. Good. Welcome. 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 Tick. And then the third one is a little bit hard. I support support. There you are. Sign language. Again, I support there we are. Support sign language. I support sign language. Now can we do all for last time? One more time. Hello. Welcome. Welcome. Wonderful. Then last one. I support sign language. Yes. Thank you. I want to ask Honorable Wilma to come forward. And this is a deaf, sir. We want to give you this. This is a sign that means I love you. I, L, and Y is incorporated in one sign. I love you. I love you. Thank you. Honorable Deputy Minister, JJ. And Honorable President. So, before I go, to the deaf community, when we rallied in our meetings, I want to say thank you again by doing this.
A warm round of applause, please. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that beautiful presentation, Mr. Drachen, as well as for that lesson to the President. You may send your invoice to the DG. I will ensure that it's signed and that it's accelerated through supply chain management and that you get your payment in a very timely fashion, within 30 days. Thank you very much. Now, ladies and gentlemen, for the next 20 minutes, we are going to hear from the DM in the presidency, who in 5 minutes will share the executive perspective on the bill, and then invite the president for his allocated 15 minutes address, and maybe more. DM?
Thank you so much, Program Director. To the President of the Republic of South Africa, His Excellency President Cyril Ramaphosa, Members of Parliament, Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee, my sister and my comrade, the Pan South African Language Board, the Presidential Working Group on Disabilities, organization and for persons with disabilities, South African National Deaf Association, Deaf Association of South Africa, the Deaf Community of South Africa, the Trans Orange School, Philadelphia, and Dominican Schools for Deaf Learners. On behalf of the department, I must, His Excellency, Honorable President, start by apologizing for my minister, who would love to be here, but unfortunately, she's not so well today. She really asked me to profusely apologize for her. But I'm here on behalf of the Department of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities. We're deeply honored to bear witness of the official signing of the South African Sign Language Bill. On the African continent, as it was alluded to, we joined Kenya, Zimbabwe, and Uganda to become the fourth country that recognized sign language as an official language. Isn't that good? As we sign South African Sign Language as the 12th official language of our land, I wish to begin by recognizing all the incredible work of the PEN South African Sign Language Board that has led us into this moment. Indeed, it has been a long journey since the days of institutionalized forms of exclusion, when the deaf and other persons with disability were often unseen, unheard, their voices were muted, and their potential were unrealized. One of the preceding milestones that led us to today was the launching of the South African Sign Language Charter, which was conceptualized to shine the institutionalized spotlight on issues that relate to communication, access to information, facilities to social justice for deaf community. Honorable Program Director, can I echo the words of Dr. Mahlamela, chairperson of the PEN South African Language Board, when he said, I quote, "The South African Sign Language Charter, as it has been said here, it is a product of years of extensive consultation with deaf community that has culminated to this call to action for our government and civil society to rally together and pledge their commitment to the principles of multilingualism and social cohesion that underpins the provision of this charter." Honorable Program Director, today, a journey crossed by democratic dispensation, of course, and our resolve towards a future where everyone is respected, dignified, and empowered. We reassert that language is far more than just a mode of communication. Language is a gateway to information, a channel for participation in the social, political, and economic life of our country. It is an instrument of active population and social inclusion. Language is a window to the soul of every nation, reflecting its culture, its values, its identity, and national will. To deny someone access to language is to deny them access to these essential facets of life. The official recognition of sign language is an affirmation that gives practical experience to the fact that South Africa indeed belongs to all. Who His Excellency, the President of the Republic, that endorsing a law is merely just a first step. We are committed as a department making South African Sign Language a lived reality. To this end, we will be advocating for the training and capacitation of public servants and frontline officers to better serve the deaf community with dignity, respect, and humanity that they deserve. We are also alive to the ongoing challenges experienced by deaf community and persons with disability in general, from discrimination and violence to educational, health, and employment inequalities. Mr. President, His Excellency, Mr. Ramaphosa, we pledge on behalf of the department, guided by yourself, here to prioritize education, advocacy, and awareness around the prevention of discrimination and violence against persons with disability. We aim to foster in the society not just recognize, but celebrates and value the diversity of all its citizens. We also take this opportunity to reaffirm our commitment to strengthen access to justice for persons with disability, and will strictly monitor compliance with national and international obligation for the rights of persons with disability. We heard here that these important people are representing us in the international platforms. We're quite impressed. We are collaborating with the Department of Health and related stakeholders to develop 6 best practice manuals and guidelines on disabilities. These will address mental health, autism, epilepsy, acceptable terminology and disability, wheelchair provision, and deaf and blind disability, consistent with nothing about us without us. That's the slogan. The creation of framework on self-representation for persons with disability is also in our top priority for this financial year, Mr. President. In addition, we recognize the unbalanced impact and impact of climate change on persons with disability. To this end, we are supporting a research project on climate change adaptation of the well-being of persons with disability in collaboration with the University of Johannesburg, Universal Sign Language in Education for purpose of learning at public schools, especially special schools. From here onwards, we are fast-tracking education and awareness campaigns through initiative and ensure that the development of regulation of South African language, early identification of deafness and deaf, blind, and clinics within our clinics and schools. All deaf children should have access to quality early childhood development like all other children. Care and education in South African Sign Language, provision should be made for training family members and society in general in South African Sign Language for greater community engagement and development. Dedicated the September month, which is Deaf Awareness Month, to drive the implementation of South African Sign Language as an official language. On this, ladies and gentlemen, Program Director, I call upon, introduce His Excellency, the President of the Republic, Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We may be seated, please. Program Director, ministers here present and deputy ministers, members of parliament, and the leadership of the various associations and organizations that represent the people that we are about today. We are gathered here this afternoon to witness what I would call a real milestone, a milestone in our democracy, which is about the signing of a constitutional amendment to recognize sign language as the 12th official language of South Africa. This is indeed a momentous occasion, which we need to applaud as we do and have learned today. On the 2nd of May 2023, members of Parliament voted for the Constitution's 18th Amendment Bill that amends Section 6(1) of the Constitution of the Republic by publicly signing this bill into law. As the program director said, the signing of bills is often quite a lonely task, where I sit in the office and I get handed the bill that I should sign, alone, seated in an office, and this past few days, a very cold office here at the Union buildings. But today, there's warmth, there's joy, as we will sign this very important bill into law. Our Constitution calls on the state to take practical and positive measures to elevate the status and advance the use of the indigenous languages of the people of South Africa. It further notes that all official languages must enjoy parity, in other words, equality of esteem and must be treated equitably. We are also giving effect to the provision of the Bill of Rights that prohibits unfair discrimination on grounds such as disability, culture, race, and gender. South African Sign Language has served as an essential communication tool for our citizens living with disabilities, and this step will further empower that community. By making sign language official, as you have heard, we will be joining 3 other countries on our continent who have preceded us, and we're very proud to join that group of countries that have advanced to the level of recognizing sign language as an official language. And we aim to advance the rights of people who communicate through sign language and to empower people to use their language is to affirm their humanity and their existence. This official recognition of sign language follows, as we all heard, a very long, extensive, and intensive public consultation process. A substantial number of submissions were made and submitted, and they were also considered very carefully to ensure that all issues were appropriately ventilated. I'm rather glad that this time round, as we were consulting on this constitution, there were no disputes, there were no disagreements about language. I often take people back into history and say, as we were negotiating our constitution, 1996 constitution, if you want to call it that, there were a number of issues that became major disputes. Language was one of those. Education was one of those. The right to strike was one of those. And this time round, having consulted and having gone throughout the country to consult on this bill, there's been no dispute. There's been no suggestion that we could even go to an ugly process of voting differently, even in Parliament. So this has been a great achievement to recognize sign language and to do so unanimously, all of us, as we had the report being put forward. It has indeed been a long journey to get to this point. It's taken years, and I am sorry that it has taken as long as it has. But maybe one could say that the years that it has taken meant that it was being given careful and serious than never. So we are here now, and now today we are signing into law a bill that will give us the 12th official language. Having sign language recognized as an official language will address many, many other challenges that we have faced, but a section of our community has faced. It will resolve issues of access to education, economic and other social opportunities, as well as public participation. People with hearing impairments will be able to access more services in our country. They'll be able to have public information and a host of other opportunities that have hitherto been very difficult for them to access or have been closed to them. Official recognition is just the beginning, as Deputy Minister. And we on government side, as you heard the Deputy Minister say, we are going to ensure that it is only end up with the interpretation that you all see happening here on stage. It should immediately filter into various other aspects that affect our lives as South Africans. It has to be standardized to collapse various geographical dialects into one standard official version, which is the remit of the PEN South African Language Board. The fact that the first comprehensive electronic language dictionary has already been developed demonstrates the enthusiasm to develop this language. The PEN South African Language Board has already convened its first workshop on lexical and grammatical standardization, and the recommendations of the report produced are currently being enacted. The next level of standardization workshop will convene in the last quarter of this financial year and will again include all relevant stakeholders. It is reassuring, therefore, that even prior to the signing ceremony, processes to institutionalize sign language had already begun. The Department of Basic Education, for example, already provides teaching and learning for deaf learners. Educators in schools are regularly undergoing training on sign language, and we have learners who have completed matric using sign language. Specialized schools for the deaf have to be increased in the country, and I have often met people who communicate through sign language saying they want to see more and more schools for deaf people. And this is something that we are going to do. And those schools that we now have already been provided with qualified personnel. It is also crucial that there are sign language interpreters to enable access to services for people who cannot hear or hear properly. For many years, the lack of sign language interpreters at the courts, the police stations, hospitals, clinics, and many service centers or points have been compromising access to justice for victims of violence, including victims of gender-based violence and many other crimes. Policies with fully resourced implementation plans are indeed required to realize the constitutional ideal of multilingualism. Allow me then to congratulate all stakeholders who have participated in this journey, and particularly as they kept chanting the slogan, "Nothing without us, nothing about us without us." For all the efforts that you have made, we are truly grateful. Much as this has come late, it has finally arrived. This also includes the efforts that have been made by the Portfolio Committee in Parliament, the various government departments, as well as every role player on this great milestone that we have achieved today. Yesterday, we commemorated 105th birthday of the father of our nation. One of his most famous quotes was, "I have cherished the ideal of a democratic and free society in which all persons live together in harmony and with equal opportunities." The signing into law of this bill today brings us all the more closer to the ideal that Madiba articulated. And so today is a great day, and I thank you all for being here, for helping me not to have a lonely process of signing a bill into law. Today I have company, and happy company indeed, and thank you. So thank you all. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Ladies and Gentlemen, we've now come to the point in which the President will place his signature. I'd like to invite Your Excellency to the front here and to also witness closely the signing of the bill. I'd like to invite Dr. Drechen, Mr. Bruno Drechen and Mr. Plose. I'd like to also invite the learners from the 3 schools that I mentioned to also come in front and witness the signing occasion, Mr. President. Please drop your cell phones and not inhibit the cameras. Thank you. Thank you very much. That concludes our signing ceremony. What is going to follow now is a family photo, which will be taken outside at the Women's Monument, and would like to invite the members of the Presidential Disability Working Group, the ministers, the deputy ministers, as well as our stakeholders from the deaf community, as well as the learners, to join the President for the family photo. Thank you. If I may just ask you, ladies and gentlemen, who are not part of the photo, to please remain seated so that the President, the ministers, as well as the invited guests, they can proceed outside for the family photo. Thank you.